Good morning, Mark Sutter with HurricaneTrack.com here with Hurricane Irma, the latest information. The 8 o'clock intermediate advisory on Irma. Winds are down just a little bit to 180 miles per hour. Sounds kind of weird saying that. A little bit of disruption as it passes closer to the Greater Antilles down here, the island of Hispaniola, probably choking off the inflow just a little bit. Being next to this mountainous area certainly does have its impacts on the circulation, and so as such the winds have come down just a little bit to 180 miles per hour, moving west-northwest a little faster at 17 miles per hour, and the pressure is up to 921 millibars. Looking at the public advisory, again, this is the intermediate, just pointing out a couple of things that I like to watch. If you want to read the entire public advisory, it's here at the National Hurricane Center website at hurricanes.gov, hurricane with an S. Hurricanes.gov, that's the easiest way, or nhc.noaa.gov, and it is the public advisory that has all this great information. So looking at the things that I like to keep track of, the bearing here is up to 290 degrees, so it's definitely moving at west-northwest, and that's important because later on we're going to see this probably decrease again with a little bit of a bend in the track back towards the west in a couple of days. I'll show you that in the modeling in just a minute. And then, like I said, pressure up just a little bit, 921 millibars. If we look at it on the satellite picture, still very, very impressive overall. But, these mountains through here on the Dominican Republic and the island as a whole here of Hispaniola, the air is trying to come in as efficiently as it can to that core, and is being disrupted just a little bit, and not until it passes Hispaniola and the mountainous area of southeast Cuba and gets out into this open water up here, I think it's going to strengthen again, and I'm going to show you that in the models. So going back to the headlines here, the public advisory, all kinds of hurricane watches and warnings. So be sure you read this because it is important. It's just not prudent to go over it detail by detail here. The other thing I want to talk about is I always keep track of the wind radii, and you can see right here that the hurricane force winds extend out 50 miles from the center still, and I think this will start to expand later. So in the next couple of days, this is really going to start to matter, especially for the United States coastline, as will this, that the tropical storm force winds 39 miles per hour or greater, they extend 185 miles out from the center. So that's very important as you start making preparations. Storm surge is my biggest worry for loss of life potential, and then that is in the Turks and Caicos, anywhere from 15 to 20 feet, but also along the northern coast of Cuba, 5 to 10 feet of surge there. And that's sea level rise because of the wind pushing the ocean onto the shore. It's not a big tidal wave like you see in the movies like The Day After Tomorrow or older movies. I think there was one called Hurricane or something like that. Way back it was kind of modeled after Hurricane Camille. No, it's this gradual rise with a much sharper rise as the eye wall comes in, what we call the radius of maximum winds, and it raises the water levels above normally dry land in many cases to these amounts. So that's very dangerous and needs to be respected. The radar loop out of San Juan, still with the rain bands going across these areas that were hit yesterday, this is just pure evil. I mean, nature doesn't necessarily have an evil or a good side, no matter what the movies depict sometimes, but man, it's like, give these folks a break. So now we have these bands still coming across, and it just shows you the immensity of the impact from this system and how large of an area it is affecting. If we look at the satellite picture one more time, you get a sense of that these bands way over here still bringing inclement weather to areas that were just decimated yesterday. So the track guidance from the 6Z or 6UTC, whichever way you want to look at it, spaghetti plots as they say, show this, and a little bit of a spreading out of the guidance now. Remember yesterday I showed you how tight they were. It looked like a bundle of wires that was very well put together by somebody that's very OCD about such things. And that's the case down here in the near term. The bundle of wires, so to speak, is very well put together. But after that time, not so much. And they start to spread out with the different models. You even have one over here making landfall along Cuba and then coming up around Key West and into Naples, etc. So that's hopefully an outlier, because that would, even though the land interaction is there, that would be horrible for Collier County and Southwest Florida as a whole. The rest of the models, for the most part, very tightly clustered, though, right there, just offshore of Southeast Florida. And that's going to matter. It really will. Zeroing in on exactly where that dangerous core is. We'll be watching this model guidance here very closely. The 12Z guidance will come out in the next couple of hours, and then the global models will start to run, and the cycle just continues. On and on and on it goes. The overnight 0Z GFS ensemble tracks, even more spread with those. Some of them do come over here to the west side, but a good majority are right up the east side of Florida, and then some are into eastern North Carolina with a few members here. Looks like a couple of them, maybe 3, that try to turn it out to sea. And we're starting to see a few more of them with this bend here off to the right, this parabolic curve. But there's also a lot of them in here with that same curve, but it's off to the left. So it looks like a fountain or a tree. And so these time frames out at days 4 and 5 here, very uncertain. And I know you're sick and tired of hearing that, but this is the best the science can do. It is. There's not one easy solution to this, so we have to watch and wait and do preparedness activities that are appropriate for what's coming. All right? So I want to do something that we did early on, and it's time to do it again, and that's to compare the global models. This is from tropicaltidbits.com, the ever-talented Levi Cowan that runs that website there. Amazing young man. So he puts these together for everybody to be able to look at. And this is the 0Z European, and you got the 500 millibar pattern here plus the surface pressure. So this shows us the shape of the ridge that we hear so much about. And there's the southwest corner of it. So this is just like your huge water balloon or whatever. It's not solid, it's not liquid, it's kind of a mix of the two. It's fluid. And then here is your other fluid out there. A hurricane is not a cork in the stream, because a cork implies a solid embedded in a liquid, and it doesn't work that way because these two interact with each other, like fluids interacting with each other. So the hurricane is just going to simply be steered around the high pressure area. And now, even though this is the edge of this particular color, this is just denoting what we call a height line. And you can see that you have a 600, that's the color here, this is 6,000 meters into the atmosphere before you reach the 500 millibar level. And it goes down from there. And if we just kind of draw these in, and I'm just showing this as an example, you would see the shape of the ridge overall. And these are contour lines, but we don't call them that. We call them height lines. So they're very similar to contour lines of a mountain. So Irma is not going to go into this. It's not physically possible. It has to erode away, and then this finds the path of least resistance, and it works its way around these ridges and negotiates these troughs, which is right here. All right? So this is the initial condition from the European, and this is the initial condition from the GFS. This is 24 hours from the European, 24 hours from the GFS. Not much difference. That's good, in terms of consistency. This is 48 hours from the European, 48 hours on the GFS. The Euro is just a little bit farther to the west, as you can see there. European, GFS. And you notice that we lost the thickness of the ridge out here. So this is going to cause Irma to slow down a little bit and move into some very, very warm water. I want you to notice something else. And just looking at the European, for example, at hour 24, it shows a pressure of about 962. Don't worry about that so much as what happens to that pressure. At hour 48, it drops to 951, so it shows strengthening. That's very important. and the GFS is even deeper at 933, and it too from hour 24 to 48 shows a little bit of deepening. Now let's just continue on. So the European at day 3 really drops that pressure there, 924 millibars, showing that it strengthens in this time frame through here. The GFS at this same area in time, very similar, but now it really starts to matter for you folks down here in southeast Florida, because the European model is closer. As you can see, that's the Euro, that's the GFS, and that subtle difference can make the difference between a possible Category 5 landfall in the Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale area, West Palm Beach, or not, and it just staying offshore by a little bit. That is huge in terms of impact, and I think that's an understatement. So going on now to the 96-hour time frame, the Euro brings it up over Florida. So if we look at the two, this is the Euro at 72, this is the Euro at 96, and then this is the GFS at 96. That's giant. It doesn't look like much spatially, horizontal distance, but physical impact, absolutely night and day. It's like the eclipse. If you saw it in totality, that's completely one thing versus 99%. Honestly, that is huge right there. Then at day 5 here, the Euro on up into southeast Georgia, and here's where the differences are pretty remarkable. The GFS still offshore, and a very powerful hurricane, hopefully not anywhere near that intensity, but it's moving in towards North and South Carolina with what would be one of the worst hurricanes in modern history, if not all of the recorded history that we know of, right? So this is huge, folks. Each of these model runs, so much is going to depend on what happens with this. And I know that goes without saying, but I want to try to show this each time I put this video together. I'm getting ready to leave for Florida. That should tell you something right there. I can always turn around and come back if need be. And I'll do another video later today around the 5 o'clock hour. But this is big. It really is. So the differences between the two at day 5 is enormous. It really is. So pay attention. The other thing that bothers me, and we can see it here on the Caribbean version of the upper ocean heat content map, currently most of Irma's circulation is over here and is headed for areas over here where there is upper ocean heat content reaching near the upper part of the scale. There's not much more that I can say except it's time to be very worried. It is time to put your plan into action, and it's also time, if you can figure out a way to do this, to remain as calm as possible and focus. Stress is going to be enormous, I know that. Try to relax, drink water, stuff that can soothe you. The families are going to be stressed, you're working, money issues. This totally sucks. But we have to stay calm and focused and help each other as best we can within your families, within your businesses, and within your community. You have to, or things are going to fall apart, especially when this is over. Okay? And I have a lot of experience with this. I have seen it. It's stressful for me. And I'm not looking for any sympathy, though, let me tell you. I choose to do this. This is my job. But getting my stuff ready and leaving my family, I know how it is. And it might, if we go back and look at the GFS, my house is right there in Wilmington. So don't think that I have a huge interest in this more than just reporting and setting up equipment and trying to make a living providing this information. This is personal as well. So the plan, like I said, I'm going to be heading down to Florida from North Carolina here today. Not sure, probably somewhere near New Smyrna Beach tonight. I have a friend that's going to let me stay at their condo. And Mark, that's his name, thank you so much. I appreciate that more than you know. And from there, I will figure out what to do tomorrow. Might turn around and come home. May proceed with the plan of setting up equipment down here in the southeast Florida area. We shall just have to see what happens. It's all up to Irma. you can follow along. I'm going to really promote this because it's not only a way to help fund what I do, and again, this is my job, but this is really going to be amazing. And I'm serious. If you have seen it before, you already have this app, and you saw it in action during Matthew and Hermine last year and Harvey this year, you already know. Hurricane Impact on the App Store. It's an iPhone app. We do have an Android version, but the two most important parts aren't working right now because we haven't had the funds to keep it up to date. We haven't had the major hurricanes to draw the interest in to fund it. It costs a lot of money to program these things unless you know how to do it yourself, and I don't. I know what I want in the app, and I pay somebody to do it, but the iOS version is absolutely, in my opinion, smoking hot, and it's got features that no other app does, and I'm going to show you that real quick here. The information part is where we're at right now with the news, the Twitter, the messages, the maps, the videos, and that's in this section. When I get down to Florida or wherever I end up for Irma, the weather data and the live cams, no one else has this. None of the other top 5 apps of any kind, no matter who they're from. There are some great tracking apps. I love Hurricane Pro and HD, and I work with them that's my disclaimer, full disclosure. But in terms of tracking, I don't think that one can be beat, honestly. But when it hits land and we have the impact, right here. And that's why I called it Hurricane Impact. It just makes sense. So this is the icon that you want to look for in the App Store. Let's try to make it go number 1, because with that funding, I can make improvements. I can develop possibly an iPad version, and we can definitely beef up the Android version to get it back working. We still have a lot of season to go. Portions of the Android do work, but not the best parts, and I'm just being honest with you. So if you get it, be warned, but at least you'll have it when we do make upgrades. Hurricane Impact, that's the logo, 2 words on the App Store. You can also support the effort in the longer term by becoming a patron on Patreon, crowdfunding, and you can also send a contribution in to fund at HurricaneTrack.com via PayPal. It all adds up. It matters. It helps to pay for everything. It helps to keep me in the game. And like I said, this is not my hobby. I'm not a storm chaser. That term does not really apply to what I do, but the media likes that term. By day or whatever, and then I work somewhere else as another job. This is exactly what I went to college for, and I created most of this based on what I learned in school in geography and meteorology and statistics and hurricane history. That's my background, and so here I am. So thanks for keeping me able to do this. It's been an interesting journey for sure over the past 20 years, and then the late years here with social media, etc. It's just been incredible. So I'm going to be getting things packed up and ready to go. I will be streaming live on Ustream Public, where there's little commercials that play from time to time on the way down. But once I get to Florida, you will have to have the app or be a subscriber to our insider services for full access to everything. That being said, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm not going to be a greedy you-know-what. I will put a public YouTube feed out there as well that will rotate through the different feeds that are up, but it'll just be on one singular channel. It's not all about putting everything behind a paywall. I want to help as many people as I can, but we have to generate revenue to do this, and the app and the subscription service are 2 ways. Just wanted to make that clear. I'll talk about the coverage more later, because I'm still in North Carolina. It's time to get moving. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything. The support, both financially and your words of encouragement, mean everything to me, and I'm going to keep saying that because it is absolutely true. I'm going to pack up and get out of here in the next few hours. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll see you next from somewhere probably along I-95.